Hey everybody! Hello again. Welcome to another exciting edition of Math with Mr. Reeves. Today I wanted to do a quick review of Module 2 as we prepare for our Module 2 lesson quiz. Alright? So in this first video, I'm just going to give you an overview of the module, and then in my second video, I'm going to work through the Module 2 review assignment. All right, so here we go. So as you can see from this title page here, Module 2 is made up of 3 sections: multiplying integers, dividing integers, and applying integer operations. So let's go ahead and just go to the first lesson, multiplying integers. All right, so remember, you do need to understand on a number line, multiplying integers, if you multiply by a negative, it's going to go to the left. Remember, the positive number tells you how many you have. The negative number tells you the direction you're going. So this example right here would be 3 times negative 2. All right, remember, you cannot have a negative amount of something. Also with counters, just a reminder, negative counters are red and positive counters are yellow. And again, you cannot have a negative amount of counters. This right here would be 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives. So this right here would represent 4 times negative 3. Right here, 4 times negative 3. This one right here would represent, this would represent 3 times negative 4. My bad, I knew something was off. 3 times negative 4. This one would represent 3 times positive 4. Now, when you want to represent a negative times a negative, that's where it gets tricky. All right, so real quick, in fact, let me just go back over here to this very first page to write this down. This is an important idea. All right, so multiplication by a positive. Multiplication by a positive number. Multiplication by a positive number is repeated addition. Got it? Multiplication by a positive number is repeated addition. All right? And multiplication by a negative number, multiplication by a negative number, multiplication by a negative number is repeated subtraction. And it is that second fact that allows us to show how to do a negative times a negative. All right, and there are 4 rules that we need to know. We need to know that a positive times a positive is a positive. That represents on a number line just going constantly to the right like that. Okay, a positive times a negative is a negative, or a negative times a positive is a negative. Both of those represent moving to the left on a number line. All right, and finally, a negative times a negative is a positive, and once again, we're moving to the right because we're repeatedly subtracting a negative. And remember, subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. So for the first lesson, this is what we need to remember in multiplication. These rules here. All right, and remember, negative things are represented by withdrawing or taking away or going down. Positive things is when you gain things. And by the way, number of occurrences is always a positive thing. All right, so there is kind of a quick summary of Module 2.1. All right, what about Module 2.2, dividing integers? Well, the great thing is if you can divide integers, you can multiply integers. So as we go through the lesson, and we do also have to be careful with 0, which we're going to be talking about here, there are some things that we need to know. All right. So I'm looking for a good place to write these rules. I guess I'll go back up here. All right, the rules are the same for division. A positive divided by a positive is equal to a positive. A positive divided by a negative is equal to a negative. A negative divided by a positive is equal to a negative. All right, and again, these two kind of get grouped together. And then a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Okay, so when you take a positive number of things, divide it into a positive number of groups, you get a positive result here. Again, you can't have a negative number of groups or something like that. All right, so that's something you have to keep in mind, but you can have negative numbers, you can go down and things like that. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and again, this goes back to the idea of repeated subtraction. All right, and this is also very important, super duper duper important. 0 divided by anything is equal to 0. All right, but anything, did I mention this is super duper important? Anything divided by 0 is undefined. All right, and if you go right here in your book, it explains why that's the case. Anything divided by 0 is undefined. So be careful on the 0 problems. Don't automatically put 0 as an answer when you see 0. With multiplication, the answer is always 0. 0 times anything is 0, right? And I probably should have mentioned that when we were on our multiplication section. Anything times 0 is 0, but 0 divided by anything, when you have a number on the bottom and a 0 on the top, all right, or if we were to write it this way, 0 divided by anything, right? We could write it like that way, equals 0. But anything divided by 0, anything divided by 0 is going to be undefined. Okay? All right, so that is our second section on dividing. You need to know these rules, and you need to make sure you know about 0. And by the way, we'll be doing some application problems. If you're looking for problems and examples, that will be in the next video. All right, and finally, our last section, 2.3, applying integer operations. All right, this is where we first did a review of PEMDAS. All right, we did PEMDAS. We did a review of order of operations. All right, so remember, with order of operations, you do what's inside parentheses first. Then you do the exponents, and then you do multiplication and division, remember, from left to right, and then you do addition and subtraction, finally at the end, from left to right. The problems in the book in this section focus just on multiplication and division and addition and subtraction. All right, they don't usually, in fact, I don't think any of the problems in the textbook have parentheses or exponents, but I do want to warn you that we did do a lesson on that, and that will be on the quiz, so make sure you're up on the entire order of operations. But for this section, they really wanted us to focus on this idea of using negative numbers to represent when you lose money or when you spend money. And a positive number would be the number of occurrences. A negative number is also when you pay someone, and a positive number would be when you get something back. So the big idea here is when we have problems, let's see here. So on these type of problems here, we need to make sure we do the multiplication first before we add and subtract. And they kind of made it easy on us by writing it in that order. And these problems here, we would do the division first. Again, even if I had put this plus 2 at the beginning, I would still multiply first. If I had put the plus 30 at the beginning, I would still multiply first. And they have a lot of word problems, again, with the idea of, I know I said the sample problems come in the next video, but this section really was being about able to apply. So let me just do one real quick. Bella pays 7 payments. So when you're doing something, the number of occurrences is positive. When you're paying, that would be a negative. And when you get something, that would be positive. So one like this would be 7 times negative 5 plus 20, and then we would make sure to do the multiplication before we did the addition. All right, so that's just a quick example of, or a quick look at this module, Module 2, which covered multiplying integers, dividing integers, and applying integer operations. Again, in the next video, I will go through the entire lesson review assignment to get you ready for this quiz. All right, I hope this helped. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.